Let's get ready to rumble!
Anyway, it's hello and welcome to Netflix vs. Cinema, which is being recorded on the day that one of the most hyped films in ever is being released, and we collectively cannot be bothered. But we collectively just cannot be bothered. Anyway, my name is Tosin. I am the host, and joining me as always on the Isle of Wight is Sharon Bollen.
Hello.
And joining me all the way from London, getting us that PWC bump, is Holly Nesling.
Hi.
Right, so we are talking. Oh, okay. The film I was talking about there was Avatar. That's the film I was talking about was Avatar, and we were having a chat about that earlier this week and talking about how. Okay, it's the big elephant in the room, and also the fact that we don't have anything else that we spoke. We haven't actually been to the cinema this week. None of us have gone to the cinema to see anything because I actually think that I don't think that there's that much, to be honest with you, a week to Christmas out there. That might be storing a whole bunch of stuff up for for Boxing Day. The only film that I was possibly going to see was Matilda the musical. I'm not sure if it's similar for you guys in your cinemas, whether there's anything being in there or anything that you could have watched but didn't. Is there?
I still have not seen Wakanda Forever, so that is firmly on my list and is still available. And She Said, which I want to see and is on and might see at the weekend /
Yeah.
All right, cool,
Well,
good stuff.
there was one film that sort of came and went. It was on only for 1 week. I think it's called Love Song. It's with Wes Studi. It looks like a really interesting little film, but it was only on 1 week, and it happened to be the week when I had all of my Christmas dues. So all the Christmas events that I was going to happened when this was on, so I didn't get to see it.
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast where we give you all the reasons why we couldn't see films. But yeah, my reasons for not seeing films was that my wife was on nights, and so I couldn't go on in the evenings, and I missed my window of the weekend. So because I was looking after the child, baby, just in case anybody doesn't actually realize that. But in case you're wondering what on earth we do on this show, we are called Netflix vs. Cinema, and what we do is that we usually go to the cinema, see a couple of films, stay at home, watch a couple of things. We rate everything out of 5, and then we see where our money has been better spent this week. This week, we can tell you that we couldn't tell you anything about cinema. But I think that I actually want to talk about Avatar. I want to talk about Avatar. Because this is being released, and I've been really conflicted, and I've been trying to figure out exactly what it is that is worrying me about this film, or what is it that I have this sort of just irrational. Like, we have a fourth member of a team, Sean, and whenever Sean is on, Sean has these actors that he just irrationally does not like. Like, for some reason, he does not like Stanley Tucci. He thinks Stanley Tucci. He thinks that he gets on the screen and he does not like Woody Harrelson. He shows up and Sean's just like wants to throw stuff at the screen. And I'm having this sort of like irrational feeling towards Avatar, where I'm just kind of like, no. But before I try and delve into this is like my own personal therapy session as to why I feel that way. What is your relationship with the first Avatar film?
I've never seen it.
Okay. Is there any particular reason why you've never seen it?
I just couldn't be bothered. I was never particularly interested in it. And I like sci-fi. I like fantasy. CGI, great. Just looked and went, nah.
Okay, all right. How about you, Sharon?
I have seen it. I saw it because it was supposed to be the film that saved cinema, wasn't it, at one time? And it was the thing that heralded, the revolution that was going to be 3D, and every film from henceforth was going to be in 3D. And so I did suffer through the film with a pair of glasses perched in front of my glasses, squinting at the screen. And then I actually watched it without the 3D, and I probably enjoyed it more without it, because it was one of those whole things of, it was just, so I was physically uncomfortable wearing 2 pairs of glasses.
Yeah.
So to get there, and there's nothing else they can devise that is not anything other than deeply uncomfortable when you wear glasses to watch a 3D film.
I agree with you that I'm not a fan of 3D.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't thrilled with it, but I watched it, I enjoyed it for what it was. But to be honest with you, I can't see why it took so long for the next one to come out. For me, that ship has sailed. I mean, whatever buzz there was around about the first Avatar, I mean, that's gone. So I'm just not interested enough to want to go and see it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, Holly, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was saying that some films, I'm trying to remember which ones where I've genuinely liked the 3D, but they are a small number where I think it's been worth it. And now I can't think of a single one, but there have been some things where I've thought, oh yeah, that was genuinely impressive. But yeah.
Was Gravity in 3D?
I think there was a 3D version of Gravity, and I thought Gravity was immersive enough as it was, so I I never bothered trying to watch it in 3D. I watched Gravity as it was. I was like, okay, yeah, good enough.
I have seen 2 or 3, but again, it's so uncomfortable that my rule is I only will watch one animated film a year.
Yes.
And it got to be that every year the one animated film I saw was in 3D. So I think I saw A Christmas Carol, the 3D one voiced by Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, yeah, the Jim Carrey.
And I watched one of the Toy Stories, I think, in 3D. But to be honest with you, I got so uncomfortable that I ended up taking the 3D glasses off, and so I ended up watching animated films. All fuzzy.
Fuzzy anime. Oh, good. Well, that's.
Because I did also see the Glee movie in 3D. Because
There was a Glee movie?
There was a Glee movie, yeah.
Oh, good Lord.
And there was a 3D one. So again, whenever I'd see any reactions, they'd be like, going, oh, or any of the 3D films I've seen, where everyone was going, oh, and sort of doing stuff. I'd like put my glasses back on and think, oh, what are they looking at? What are they seeing? Oh, that's it. And then I'd take them off again. Because I just got to the point where I thought, I don't want to sit for 2 hours with this weight on my face.
Yeah.
I'm just watching the 3D films, and I think the best 3D films, and I think it was Ready Player One. I think I saw in 3D.
Yeah, okay, all right. We're gonna stop. We're gonna move off something that we haven't watched, and we're gonna and go into things that we actually have watched.
Well, you haven't said why you don't want to watch it.
I haven't said okay. So this has made me. What I'm processing at the moment is that I really do not like hype, and sure enough, some of the things I loved were have been really, really hyped, like Avengers Endgame. But I feel like that was well deserved hype. But Avatar, first of all, I did not like the first one. I mean, there is this growing thing online where people just bash Avatar, and it's become like that kind of thing where, like, people just go, oh yeah, my favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard, and it just becomes that thing where people just decide that this is the position they're going to take, and they just bash Avatar. And I like to say I was one of the original bashers. I walked out of the cinema bashing that film, and I remember thinking, okay, yeah, fine, yeah, okay, cool, technological advancements and all that, but a lot of the hype about Avatar, I never agreed with. When people said about the fact that, okay, it might technically have been a cutting edge thing, but they refer to the Na'vi as photorealistic. I didn't think they were photorealistic. There's scenes where you have the Na'vi beside the humans, and I never felt watching it that they felt that they were in the same world. It looked like, it was obviously composited. So they didn't look like creatures that were in the real space as the humans, as far as I was concerned. There's especially one scene when Neytiri at the end carries Jake when she thinks Jake is dead. And that scene doesn't look right to me. It just doesn't. So a lot of the hype about Avatar, I know people talking about, oh man, the 3D, it takes you to a different world. I felt like I was in a different alien planet. And there's one scene where when he first gets into the Avatar body and his feet go into the sand. And that, I think, okay, cool, that was kind of cool. But apart from that, my nose just hurts. My nose just hurt and my eyes hurt throughout the whole film. And so you have all these things. And when I say I don't like hype, James Cameron is he is his own hype man, and he will walk around and he will hype these Avatar movies because of which he has planned 4 sequels, by the way. So this is Avatar 2, and we're planning to have all the way up to Avatar 5. So he has planned this long ass mythology, which I think in his head he wants it to rival things like Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff. That he's planned this long ass mythology. Number one, I think that is excessive. The same way I thought like the first Hobbit being turned into 3 films was excessive. I think that's excessive. And then he's going, this is going to be the best amazing thing, blah, blah, blah. And I just don't like his push to tell you what it is that you are going to like, and which he does a lot. He tells you what you're going to like. and he has this which has made him a good filmmaker. I'm guessing that if he has a single-mindedness, it makes him a good filmmaker and all that. But I don't like it. I don't like it, and I don't like the fact that when Avengers Endgame overtook Avatar as the highest-grossing movie of all time, he went and released a new version of Avatar in cinemas to refresh people's memory before the second one came out, so that Avatar went back and became the highest grossing movie of all time. It just seems extremely petty to me. So my relationship with James Cameron at the moment is not great. And then I find that the first Avatar, I think the first Avatar was a film that really, really showed me that my movie-going taste had changed a bit too. I don't care how good it looks. I don't care how many things blow up. I don't care how advanced graphics you use. If the story is not there, I'm not interested. And the first Avatar does not have a story to uphold its runtime and over everything it does. I remember that year because it was up for all the Oscars and everybody was hoping that it was going to win Best Picture. And I was rooting like anything for The Hurt Locker. I was rooting for The Hurt Locker to beat Avatar, and just please do not let this film, because if this film wins Best Picture, he's going to get enabled. He's going to think that he can do whatever he wants, and he's going to give us more of this nonsense. And then this Avatar movie has come out. It's over 3 hours long. The film is, yes, I know, it is over 3 hours long. And in today's, when I sit down and I think, what could I be doing with 3 hours? And I'm just kind of like, I'll watch that on TV when I can pause it, because I feel that it is self-indulgent. I think James Cameron in this Avatar series is self-indulgent. And I don't personally think that it has much respect for the people who are watching it. I've read interviews with him where he said things along the lines of, oh, well, people watch the people will sit down at home and they'll binge watch a TV series, so they'll watch 8 hours of something. So don't talk to me about watching 3.5 hours. Don't try and tell me that that's too long. I'm like, yeah, but there you have a pause button. You can go to the loo and not miss anything. Yeah. They have the decency to give you a cliffhanger and a break where you can go away and then come back. Yeah. You haven't given us a pause button. You just want us to sit down there, and you think that this stuff that you are so indulged in is great enough, and you are big-headed enough to think that we don't have anything else to do with our lives, that we're going to sit down for a 4-hour stretch watching your nonsense, which apparently has a very thin story that doesn't actually. So essentially, all these things have come to make me sit down, and I actually thought on, and I feel like what I would have thought would have been the unthinkable is going to happen, and I don't think I'm going to watch Avatar: The Way of Water in a cinema. I think I'm going to wait until it shows up on Disney Plus, and I'm going to watch it with a pause button, because I've got better things to do with 3 and a bit hours of my time. But I also think that's unfair, because there's a film called Babylon starring Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, which is apparently about 3 plus hours, which I'm a lot more happy about going to watch it in the cinema because. So I think that's a bit hypocritical. I said this is like therapy for me, but I feel like this is a film that, in James Cameron's mind anyway, is going to be the biggest film of the year, and I am just not bothered. Anyway, that's me done. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you so much. I will send the bill in the post. Holly and Sharon and anyone else who's listening to this. Yes, but yeah, why I do not think I shall be watching Avatar: The Way of Water. And let's move on to things we've actually watched. So with that, I was actually looking at what's in the cinemas as well, and yeah, it seems to be the only things that we haven't spoken about are Avatar: Way of Water and Matilda the musical. That was the only good show in town, which I really do want to see but didn't get a chance to. But let us go on to the things we've actually seen. So this is just going to be a Netflix and Friends episode, which happens every now and then when cinema doesn't give us anything to watch, or cinema gives us something but we are too lazy to go and watch it. And the first thing that we are going to bring up today is we are going to talk Disney Plus and Disenchanted. Now, I believe, Disenchanted, Holly and I have both watched this. So even though I've just done a bit of talking, Holly, if it's okay, I will take the lead on this one, and then I'll let you take the lead on Wednesday, because I know that you were the first one to bring Wednesday up. So 15 years ago, there was a film called Enchanted, starring Amy Adams, Patrick Dempsey, James Marsden, Idina Menzel, and this film was Disney in extremely self-referential and self-aware mode. I think probably the most self-aware thing Disney had done probably since The Emperor's New Groove. And the whole idea of Enchanted was that it starts off as an animated film in like typical Disney princess animated fashion. And you meet this princess called Giselle. She meets a prince. He goes, "Oh, we'll get married in the morning," after meeting her the night before. And then she gets transported by the evil like the evil queen who's always in these stories. The evil queen. She gets transported to this terrible, terrible place, which happens to be live action modern day New York City. And that finishes with a happily ever after. And then this film, Disenchanted, it's kind of like Disney going, okay, cool, but what happens after the happily ever after? And they very much talk about this. They talk about, it starts off with the animated form as well. You have a chipmunk reading the story of Enchanted to his two kids, and then they go, let's read it again, let's read it again. He said, no, let me tell you about what happens after the happily ever after. And he brings out a new book from the shelf called Disenchanted. And and they tell the story of Disenchanted, in which Giselle has been living in New York for all this time. She is the stepmother to Patrick's, his name is Robert. Robert's daughter, Morgan, and they have a daughter of their own. But with everything that's been going on, they go through this whole... There's a bit where they talk about the modern problem of having to leave a city and go to suburbia, but they do it in a very Disney way, in a very Disney story way, which is actually quite cute. They have to move to this place called Monroeville, which is a little bit outside New York. Robert has to be a commuter to go in, and they talk through about all those different things that go through with life. And Giselle is finding it difficult because she's thinking things were so much better when I was back in Andalasia, which is a fairy tale world, and she understood how everything works. And here in this world, she doesn't understand sarcasm, and she doesn't know how she fits in. And when she tries to sing a song to get all the animals in the neighborhood to come together and work together, people tell her to stop singing and all that sort of stuff. But through story machinations, she ends up with a fairy wand, and she wishes that her life was like a fairy tale. She wishes her life was like a fairy tale, and as the story goes on, it gets a bit WandaVision in that the entire town of Monroeville gets transformed, and everybody in that town takes up different positions that you would usually find in a fairy tale. So the queen bee woman who like runs the neighborhood watch and all that kind of stuff. You know, there's always that one woman who just sort of like says, "This is my town," and she becomes the queen, and then she has minions, and all these different people come in, and the twist that happens is that Giselle made this wish, forgetting that she is now a stepmother. And stepmothers, what are they always like in Disney tales?
Evil.
Exactly. So Giselle, so Amy Adams, who plays this sort of like, ever optimistic, lovely, like sun shining out of every orifice character of Giselle, starts finding herself being pushed into the mold of the evil, wicked stepmother. And stuff happens. So the whole thing is like, okay, what are we going to do about this? So I'm just going to put that out there. Holly, what did you think of this?
I really enjoyed it, far more than I thought I was going to. I put it on in the background because I felt bored. And I was planning on, and I still did do, play solitaire whilst watching it because, my attention span is very small.
You're gonna love Avatar.
I will be doing something else throughout the entirety of it. No, I thought it was very sweet, quite funny, and very watchable. It wasn't profound. It has not changed my life, for better or worse. But I am very pleased I watched it, and I could very easily, and I can compulsively rewatch anything,
yeah.
But I could happily put that on in the background again and still, smile gently throughout and have the odd giggle. And I have a sneaking suspicion I probably got damp-eyed at some point or something, because I'll cry at anything. Statistically speaking, I probably cried at some point.
Yeah.
Anything at all, I'll cry at.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing with because Disenchanted pulls off a similar trick with Enchanted in that, because Enchanted was, quite frankly, it was Disney ripping the absolute fill in the blank out of themselves. So it was Disney understanding that, look, okay, we have done stuff in the past with unrealistic beauty standards, with like, there's certain conventions that we have put in place, And they acknowledge all of those. And I didn't think that there was anything else left to acknowledge. But Disenchanted finds more things to go into it. They bring James Marsden back, who for me was the MVP of the first film, because he plays this he's not quite dunder-headed, but he's quite full of himself prince. And he's the one who's all like, he comes into modern day New York and he's trying to attack a bus with a sword because he thinks it's a beast and all that kind of stuff. And he has for me the line of the film where there's a bit where he goes, "Don't worry, we'll come up with a very brilliant plan at the very last minute which will solve all of our problems." And both Enchanted and Disenchanted have this whole thing where they manage to rip it out of Disney. They know what it is. They know what Disney happens. They know what kind of stuff that happens. They know what happens in these sort of stories. They manage to acknowledge it while at the same time still being that type of story. So also I'd say that still be that type of story. So I think it's quite cool. There's a song that they do in this film called "Badder" that is a two-hander between Amy Adams and Maya Rudolph, who plays the sort of queen bee of the town, which had us humming it afterwards because we just think I think the lyrics are funny. I think it's good. I really enjoy this. I really enjoyed Disenchanted. And for a belated sequel, it is way better than I think it has any right to be, because you could think this would just be like a cash grab, but this is just for them to come up with more content to convince people to get Disney Plus subscriptions. And I'm sure that is in there. I'm sure that that's part of the reasoning. But at the same time, they actually made a good film. They actually made a good film. I think Amy Adams is brilliant in it. I think James Marsden's back. Great. And I really, really enjoyed it. And even the message that it gives, is not as twee, I don't think, as you would expect. It's not as twee as you would expect, but it's still good. I think I love this sort of Disney mode of letting real life interfere with the fairy tale every now and then. I actually really, really like it. So I would give Disenchanted, I would give it a 4. I would give it a 4 out of 5.
I'm going to join you there, and I have just remembered where I cried as well. So,
well, you encouraged me, because I was hesitating about watching it because I thought I don't want to be disenchanted because I quite like the first one. So you encouraged me, so I probably will go and see that.
Yeah.
When I have a book, yes, I will go and see that.
I think
it's on Disney Plus, though.
I think it's actually more enchanting than the first one.
Okay. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far because I think that it's and I think it depends on, it becomes a thing of personal preference as to how well you think this works. So I don't think it's maybe as magical as the first one, but I think the first one had that sort of surprise element in it where you weren't expecting it and everything like that. I love the fact that it's not just a retread. And for me, whenever you have a sequel, I always think that the best thing I can say about a sequel is that it feels like it's in the same world and it's a continuation of the story. And it is a continuation of that story without giving us just what we've seen before. And I quite liked it. I think probably for me the weakest bit of it was the scenes where it looked like you could almost see that they were like, all right, we got to give Patrick Dempsey something to do in this film, because because this film is really all about the women, and we have this man who we need a reason for him to get off screen, so we need to give him something to do, and then those scenes are middlingly entertaining, but quite frankly, the film you could have had the film without those films, and it wouldn't make any difference. Quite frankly, it would make no difference to the film whatsoever. But yeah, I would recommend it. I would say Disenchanted is good. It does not embarrass the first film, which for me is the best thing.
Yeah. Oh, that you reassure me. Thank you.
Okay, and now we go on to Wednesday on Netflix. And Wednesday, this is something that I know the second it dropped, Holly, you sent a message to everybody going, "Watching Wednesday, I'm watching Wednesday," and Wednesday has become this phenomenon. It's been memed to the gills. People are talking about all these things about how it's one of the most watched things that Netflix have ever done, even more than Stranger Things, which sounds, well, quite frankly, it's shocking. If that is true, I find that shocking. But Holly, tell us about Wednesday.
So we had 30, I'm just double checking the date. So 31 years ago, we had the film of the Addams Family
Yeah.
with Angelica Houston, Raul Julia, and Christina Ricci playing Wednesday.
Yes.
2 years later, we had Addams Family Values, same.
Yay.
And we now pause in time whilst also moving in time and still staying modern. Wednesday is older now. She is at secondary school and the same school as her brother, Pugsley. And they are, not really enjoying it, not doing the whole sort of integration thing very well. It's when, students are mean to Pugsley, she drops piranhas in the school swimming pool. And when the unpleasant people are in there, pointing out to them that the only person allowed to torture her brother is her. Now, this does not land well with the family, who her mother is played by, Morticia is played by Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yes.
And her father, Gomez, is played by, and my mind is now going completely blank.
Luis Guzman.
Thank you. Who are much more like the original Gomez and Morticia of the 1960s series than the original cartoon, rather than Raul Julia, who was a much more suave individual.
Yeah, Gomez was a bit more grotesque to begin with, and they lead into the grotesque in this.
So Wednesday is kicked out of her school, and unsurprisingly, and finds herself shipped off to the boarding school that both her parents went to, where they'd met, where her mother was this highly successful, beautiful woman who headed the fencing squad or team and had a simply marvelous time.
Think Regina George and Mean Girls.
Exactly. And Wednesday is, of course, thoroughly unimpressed by this, is planning on doing everything she can not to fit in. And is unimpressed in the way only teenagers can be. The headmistress is played rather wonderfully by, and my mind is once again
Gwendolyn Christie,
who of course we have seen increasing amounts of, who is rather wonderful.
Good thing too.
And there are a number of other sort of key individuals involved, and making a cameo. It's not really a cameo. A part in it is Christina Ricci once more.
Yeah.
Coming back, looking thoroughly different to the way she did when she was, 10. Unsurprisingly, who would have thought that 30-something years changes a person? I find it interesting, as she and I are the same age, so I look at it and think, yeah, no, that. So.
I had very similar thoughts when looking up Christie. I was like, oh, what? Oh, yeah, okay.
So this school is one for the gifted, and the people there are generally witches, sirens, werewolves, vampires, and no doubt other things.
Yep.
And she finds herself with the cheeriest roommate imaginable, a werewolf who loves pastels and rainbows, and Wednesday
called Enid.
Wednesday obviously loves black morbidity and not smiling. She also has a mandated therapist because, apparently setting piranhas on a load of teenage boys is socially frowned upon. And within this environment of her unhappiness and being forced to participate, which has never landed well with her character in the films, a mystery happens. There start to be murders.
Yes, it becomes a murder mystery story.
Wednesday is hell-bent on finding out who done it and what's going on. And it stretches out beautifully into, is it 8 or 10 episodes?
8 episodes. It's 8 episodes.
Which are, up to my mind, well-paced.
Yep.
Very entertaining. And keep you on the edge of your seat. what would you like to add to this, Tosin?
Okay, cool. So my major exposure to the Addams Family is the 90s movies. So Addams Family, the Addams Family, and Addams Family Values. Those are the Barry Sonnenfeld films with Christian Ricci as Wednesday. That's my major exposure to them. I know there's been a load, but there's been like TV shows in the past. There's been like 2 other animated movies. There's been repeated attempts to bring the Addams Family back, but that I think is still the one that in pop culture still has the highest cachet. Is the 90s movies are the ones that people think about. And so when I think about these characters, I think about that. When I think about the characterization of these characters, I think about that. What they have done here, because this show was created by Alfred Gough and Miles Miller, I believe his name is. I think it's definitely Alfred Gough. I think it's and Miles Miller. And these guys are the same people who created Smallville. And what those guys did is that they took the whole idea of Superman and put him in a teen drama. And what they've done here is they've taken the Addams Family and they've shoved them into a teen drama. They have shoved them into the conventions of a teen drama. And I don't think the Addams Family fits in the conventions of a teen drama. I don't think the Addams Family fits in conventions, full stop. And that's the point of them. The point of the Addams Family is that they don't fit it. So you have this whole conventions, because it's a teen drama, there's things that happen, not because they're Addams Family-ish, but because it's what happens in a teen drama. So you have Wednesday having this teenage angst relationship with her mum, where they're fighting and everything like that. And I'm like, that doesn't feel like the Addams Family. That just feels like a teen drama. And the fact that you have Morticia crying because she cannot connect with her daughter. Well, when I think about the Angelica Houston version of Morticia, which for me is perfect, and I think that if the fact that, in the film, it would be like the kind of thing where Wednesday's antipathy towards her mother will probably sort of show up in her trying to kill her mother, and her mother will probably be so proud of Wednesday because, oh, finally she got her first axe, that kind of thing. But then you have this relationship between Morticia and Wednesday where Morticia is crying, going, oh, one day I hope I can get through to you, and I'm just kind of going, that's not the Addams Family. That's not, but and because they've shoved this, they put her into this school, Nevermore Academy, which is, and I say this. I try and say this as kindly as I can, is a bargain basement Hogwarts. That's what it is. It's a bargain basement. Yeah, it's a bargain basement Hogwarts. They put it into this school, and so there's some things in there that if you've read Harry Potter or any other school set mystery, will be familiar. And so there's things that have to happen with it. So obviously she's put in with Enid, played by Emma Byers. She's put in. Oh, by the way, Wednesday's played by Jenna Ortega. And yes. she's put into this room, and they share this room, and because Enid is all like rainbows and everything, and her side of the room looks like a rainbow threw up on it, and they have this stained glass window where she has covered with also rainbows things, and there's this brilliant set design that they have where Wednesday takes everything off her side, and they have this room that's split down the middle. And I think that the lighting is genius because one side of the room is a rainbow, the other side of the room is pretty much black and white. And the way they do, the production design on this, brilliant. So, but because she's put with that person, you know that because these sort of things happen in a teen drama, there's going to be growing and learning happening. And Wednesday is going to grow and learn and change and become a better person by the end of the show. Because that's what happens in teen dramas. But that is not the Addams Family. So for me, my problem is that I've had this conversation. I've ended up in a WhatsApp group with superfan Nina and another friend of ours, Simon, who Simon loves all this stuff. Simon, they used to joke that anything that stereotypically like a teenage girl would like, Simon likes. So Simon is like, he's all in for this show, and he was talking about the fact that it's good because it's the characters that you saw in the 90s film, but you don't want to just rehash what happened there. You want to have a different scenario for them to go into. And I agree with that. But my problem is that I don't think it's the same characters that we saw in the 90s films. These characters are different. They are different, and so there's things about it that I just don't think work. I mean, having said that, Thane shows up, and Thane is an absolute triumph in this TV show. Thane is an absolute triumph. So, I mean, if you can accept the fact that these are different characters, not the same characters, put into a different thing, then the show does what it does all right. I mean, there's some things I have in the final episode, especially there's some really, really god awful scenes I do not like. but if you can accept the fact that these characters are different, I mean, what they do to Pugsley. Pugsley is barely even an Adams in this thing. I mean, Pugsley is just kicked to the curb, and I will say that, okay, this is not me being objective whatsoever. I have a very subjective love for Pugsley, because when I saw bearing in mind, as Holly says, we are both the same age as Christina Ricci. When the first Addams Family film came out, we would have been 10. When the second one came out, we would have been 12. And so I'm looking at the screen and I'm looking at this, and who am I going to identify most in this film is the son. The son who was sidelined and was pushed out of the way because of his bigger sister, and his bigger sister tortures him, and I have a bigger sister as well. And so I identified hard with Pugsley. So at the moment, I know I am totally projecting. Totally projecting onto Pugsley. I am 100% projecting. I know that. But what they do with him in this film, they've turned him into nonsense. He is rubbish in this TV show. And I've always had almost like a starting hashtag justice for Pugsley, because I'm like, in Addams Family Values, he gets booted to the side. Everything became about Wednesday. Nobody cared about Pugsley. I'm like, who's going to care about Pugsley? And in this show, Pugsley is, quite frankly, rubbish. Pugsley is barely even a character. So those are my thoughts, and I will stop talking now and take a breath. So Holly, you can tell me how much you liked it.
Well, I really did like it. I get your points, but I actually do see some evolution from the previous ones, because in Addams Family Values, Uncle Fester undoubtedly grows as a person. It's in his experiences throughout. And becomes more of an Addams in the end, rather than less of an Addams. But I feel like it does have some good continuation to it. I think there are elements of, Morticia similarities between the two.
I think it's the dress, and that's about it. But sorry, carry on.
Now, you see, I can see some of the, the responses in, and I'm thinking more Addams Family Values. I can see progression in there, particularly remembering, how they reacted with sending the children to camp. It's so I feel that there was already an element of, in the second film, forcing them into an enforced sort of teen environment. So it has an element of that progression. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to season 2. And seeing what happens next, because it's ridiculous. It's delightfully ridiculous. I don't disagree with the majority of what you said, but it brought me a great deal of joy.
Yeah, well, good. I know. Well, actually, I don't know. I'm not sure if I am in a minority about this. This seems to be a bit of a Marmite show, and it seems to be every now and then you have a lightning rod where people seem to just go to, like, if you want to fight, go to this thing and either choose your side for it or against it. And online, there seems to be that there's people who are like for it and against it. Worst thing ever. Best thing ever. Let's fight. And I think so you mentioned the section in Addams Family Values where Wednesday and Pugsley go to a summer camp. And that is... I mean,
watch it again tonight.
I mean, honestly, even just that idea, the idea of them in the... And I think that's when the Addams Family are the best, where you put them in a situation where even the situation makes you go, oh my God. So taking Wednesday and putting her in a school full of all these supernatural beings where it doesn't have that same thing. And I feel like the topics of the treatment of this whole idea of going to a place with authority figures and what you're going to do was done deliciously in Addams Family Values when they put them in a summer camp. And I prefer that to this. This, I feel, became too teen drama tropes. See, there's a love triangle. I mean, everything that you want. This is Twilight, and it's like it's not quite. It's better. It's better than Twilight. I'll give it that. But all essentially this almost conformed. And I feel like the Addams Family movies just didn't. Like, even when you talk about Uncle Fester growing, the way in which he grows is crazy. I remember Joan Cusack in Addams Family Values. I just think that whole thing was just genius. Brilliant. I mean, I'm going to try and stop So I'm thinking, if you are okay with the fact that they have changed the characters, which you had to do to make them conform to a teen drama format, then you're probably going to have a lot of fun with this. If you are less okay with it, like I'm less okay with it, I don't think you're going to have as good a time. Having said that, at the end of the day, I would give it a 3.
Yeah, I loved the 90s films. I love this. I'm giving it a 4.
Okay. All right, and I'll stop there because I could show you my WhatsApp threads, my WhatsApp discussion threads about Wednesday. There's a lot more I could say. There's a lot more I could bang on about, but I will not. I will show some self-restraint and not.
We can discuss it separately after this.
We can discuss it. Let me just put it this way: in the WhatsApp thread, there's a bit where I end up quoting Disenchanted of come up with a brilliant plan right at the last moment that'll solve all of our problems. That is going to become one of my quotes that I'm going to start using because that trope shows up everywhere. But anyway, an average of 3.5 for Wednesday, and now has become a little bit of a tradition. I say that because we did it last week. We're going to end with a Christmas film. A Christmas movie. Last week it was the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. And this week we are going to be talking, or shall I say we, Sharon, you are going to be talking about the experience you had, the evening you endured watching Christmas at Mistletoe Farm.
Yeah.
You waited all this time for this moment, Sharon. This is your moment. Go for it.
This is my moment. I should be doing. Yes. There are some days when you can spend almost as long looking for something to watch on the various platforms as actually a program lasts. I have found. Yes. And I think on this particular evening, I just went, just watch something. So I watched Christmas at Mistletoe Farm, and there is a plot in there. The plot is basically a widowed father of. The plot is basically.
Sorry.
Oh, I can hear myself.
Yeah.
And I agree with myself. There is a plot in there somewhere. It's the plot in it. It starts off. There's a widowed father of I've just tried to blot it out of my memory in some regard. So I think he's got 4 children, but it could be 5. I can't quite remember. It's been 2 weeks since I've seen it. And so, yeah, he's a widowed father of these children. And he, out of the blue, he's struggling in his job. He's struggling between coping with his children now that he's on his own, having to sort of get them ready for school, having to sort of cope with their emotional needs, having sort of lost their mother. And he's got a quite high-pressured job where they have no regard for family commitments. It's like, this is the job you have to do and do it. And you have to shut your life out of your working experience, blah, 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 blah. And so out of the blue, he gets an email to say that he's inherited this farm, Mistletoe Farm, in the middle of nowhere. I believe it's in the middle of nowhere, Yorkshire, but I could be wrong. Anyway,
this is English.
English, yeah.
Oh.
It's an English Christmas film. Yeah, so he packs his children up and he goes to this English village. As in all of these films, all villages are inhabited by a mixture of odd bods and eccentrics. And so he meets all the odd bods and eccentrics who live there. They have a country and western obsession and knitting obsession and quirky animals and a quirky vet and all sorts of things going on. And basically, there is a conflict in there. About his he decides that he can't really cope with the farm and he might have to sell it. And then you get these weird estate agents who turn up and who get savaged by goats and things and terrorized on a farm, as only people from urban environments can be terrorized on a farm. There's a sheep, or that sort of thing. So
especially in Christmas movies.
It's a Christmas
I
movie.
am terrified by farms, and I assume that something awful happened. Every time I
We saw
go near
those programs as a child, all the awful things that could happen to you, you know, the public safety films. You probably weren't as traumatized as I was, because in the 70s they were really seriously disturbing films. But anyway, so then there's this odd chap who lives on the farm, who's like this quirky, eccentric half-wit.
So and so. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like the comic, like, relief heart of the film. And anyway, it's just so tedious.
This is so far it sounded like the film version of Clarkson's Farm.
Yes, I think they probably were trying to exploit that. It's almost like the people who made Nativity hadn't seen the first sort of 2 or 3 films. They'd gone straight to one like the 4th sequel and thought, I'll make a film based on that sort of originality. So it felt like it was a bit derivative. I can't really say a lot about it because it was just not that very good. I mean, the humour was a little bit forced. The situations were contrived. The heart of it, the sentiment, was laid on with a trowel. It was okay, but I couldn't say it was, it's going to be up there with Alf and Nativity as a modern Christmas classic. I mean, the first Nativity film, which I think is, still stands up, even though it's sort of aging a bit now, but the others were like Triton Pants. But this one, I think, is Triton Pants, really. So I can't say a lot about it other than if you are desperate to watch something, it would accompany your snooze quite happily on a Sunday afternoon. But I wouldn't go out of your way to watch it. So I would be kind and give it a 2.
Okay, so what platform was this on?
This was on Netflix.
Just so we know exactly how to avoid it.
Yeah.
So that is a 2 for Christmas and Mistletoe Farm. So is this the kind of film that before the streaming people came along, there was a channel somewhere in Sky just called Christmas Movies.
Oh
yeah, you'd find it on there.
This is Hallmark movie-esque, but it sounds worse.
A British one. They are the odd quirky British Christmas film. They do pop up every now and then, and it sort of comes in that. I mean, it's nowhere near as polished as the American Hallmark films, but not quite so saccharine. I mean, there is they have shoehorned a sort of romance in it, but that's not the centre of the story. It's about this man sort of finding himself in this rural idyll, really, rather than having to struggle on in the urban rat race. Let's go to the country and everything will be okay.
Oh, yeah, that's not a trope at all. Never seen that. Never seen it before.
Yeah, and all these quirky village folk who, would be, committed in any other circumstance. They're they're the heart and soul of, jolly old England that never existed. So it's a complete fantasy in that, it's someone's idea of a world that probably never did exist and never would exist. It's like a pure fantasy.
Yeah.
And everyone was it's a bit panto. I think everything was a bit. I suppose it is the equivalent of like a panto. But a film version.
All right, cool. Which does bring us nicely back to Nativity. So,
yes.
It's the classic idea, though, that if you move to the country, ultimately everything will be better and your problems float away, as though life suddenly in a village is miraculously not full of the same but different problems as anywhere else.
Yes, and people who write these films probably have never lived in a rural environment. It's like, yeah, you've never had the last bus go at 2:30 in the afternoon, have you? And you've never had your post office, your shop and your pub closed, so you are completely isolated. And on the Isle of Wight, nothing is that far, but there are villages where they're not served by any buses anymore, and the shop is closed, the post office is closed. They may have a pub that's become a gastro pub, so none of the locals can just stroll down there and have a pint anymore, because you have to book 3 weeks in advance. Yeah, you've got to book 3 weeks in advance to sort of have a gastro meal. So there are villages like that on the Isle of Wight. Where people think, it's a rural idyll, so it's. Oh dear, please don't make me talk about it anymore.
Okay. We'll stop.
It was a 2.
Okay, it's a 2. A 2 for Christmas and Mistletoe Farm.
Yeah.
2 for Christmas and Mistletoe Farm. Okay, cool. We'll stop. All right, and I think that brings us to the end. I'm not sure whether I'm not sure if this is the end of us recording for 2022 because, quite frankly, I got absolutely blindsided by the fact that Christmas is next week. So,
Yes, yeah.
I
Because it's
got,
a weekend, it tends to be a bit like, oh,
I'm like, what? You mean it's here already? What? Seriously? December just started.
I still haven't sent Christmas cards.
No,
They're not going to arrive until March. Apologies to everybody I know listening. I will send them. I just don't know when they'll arrive.
I'm going to have a day of hand delivering them because I'm not going to trust the post. So at least I'm on an island. I can sort of do a couple of laps. So I'm going to write my Christmas cards and then hand deliver them because I can't be bothered to post them and then see them in the new year arrive. So I have got an afternoon of hand delivering all of my Christmas cards.
I'm just gonna say, Sharon, Holly, this is your Christmas card. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. And a Merry Christmas to both of you.
This is your Christmas. Okay, so we'll figure out offline if we're going to be recording next week. If there's going to be anything to watch besides Avatar, which we're not going to watch. I think this is one of those bits where I really, really wish Sean was here because I think Sean might be a little bit. Sean might have been a little bit more supportive of Avatar and the 3D stuff than we are. And I think, and I'm always all for having like a balanced thing. And I know that me attempting to rip Avatar a new one, it is not balanced. But then again, I don't think James Cameron can hear me through all his money. So, but anyway, until next week when we might either record something or just say Merry Christmas. It's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for joining us throughout 2022. Goodbye.